The outcome in U.S. District Court today was not good for New Jersey Teamsters boss Tony Provenzano. A jury found him guilty of conspiring to get kickbacks on a $2.3 million loan from a union pension fund.
From the moment they enter the prison system, Mafia members are subjected to a unique set of circumstances that both challenge and shape their existence. In this video, I will uncover how Mafia bosses are treated in prison. Sammy Gravano. In the mean streets of Brooklyn, New York, a young Sammy Gravano was destined for a life of crime. Born on March 12, 1945, to Sicilian immigrant parents, Gravano grew up in a neighborhood teeming with mob activity. It wasn't long before he found himself drawn into the seductive allure of organized crime. As a teenager, Gravano witnessed his first mob hit, an event that would forever change the course of his life. The sheer brutality and power displayed by the mobsters left an indelible mark on the impressionable young man. Sammy was always fascinated by the lifestyle. He saw the respect and fear that these guys commanded, and he wanted a piece of it. Influenced by the likes of notorious mobsters such as Lucky Luciano and Frank Costello, Gravano began his journey into the criminal underworld. He started off as a low-level enforcer, running errands and collecting debts for the local mob bosses. Gravano quickly gained a reputation for his ruthless nature and willingness to do whatever it took to get the job done. His loyalty and fearlessness caught the attention of the Gambino crime family, one of the most powerful and feared organizations in the world of organized crime. Under the guidance of his mentor, Agnello Della Croce, Gravano rose through the ranks of the Gambino family, becoming a trusted soldier in their criminal empire. He was known for his strategic thinking, his ability to stay calm under pressure, and his knack for avoiding law enforcement. Gravano's criminal activities expanded beyond the streets of Brooklyn. He became involved in various illegal enterprises, including drug trafficking, loan sharking, and extortion. His influence and power grew, and he became a force to be reckoned with in the world of organized crime. But it wasn't just his criminal exploits that made Gravano infamous. He was also known for his ability to manipulate and control those around him. He had a way of getting people to do his bidding, whether through fear or loyalty. As the 1970s turned into the 1980s, Gravano's power and influence continued to grow. He became a trusted confidant of the Gambino family's boss, John Gotti, and played a pivotal role in the family's criminal activities. Together, Gravano and Gotti orchestrated a reign of terror, eliminating anyone who posed a threat to their empire. Their ruthlessness and disregard for human life shocked even the most hardened criminals. But as Gravano's criminal career reached its peak, the walls began to close in. Law enforcement agencies were determined to bring down the Gambino family, and they saw Gravano as a key player in their efforts. He was eventually arrested. Facing a lengthy prison sentence, he made a decision that would send shockwaves through the world of organized crime. In exchange for leniency, Gravano made the bold choice to cooperate with law enforcement. He became a government witness, providing crucial information that would help bring down the very organization he had once been a part of. Gravano's decision to cooperate was unprecedented. He had insider knowledge of the Gambino family's operations, and we knew that his testimony could be the key to dismantling their criminal empire. Gravano's cooperation came at a great cost. He had to sever ties with his former associates, including his mentor, John Gotti. This betrayal would have far-reaching consequences, both for Gravano and the world of organized crime. Gravano's testimony proved to be devastating for Gotti and his defense team. The evidence presented by the prosecution, coupled with Gravano's first-hand accounts, left little room for doubt. In April 1992, Gotti was found guilty on multiple charges, including murder and racketeering. The Teflon Don's reign had come to an end. To ensure his safety, Gravano was placed in the Witness Protection Program. He was given a new identity and relocated to an undisclosed location, far away from the reach of his former allies. As Sammy Gravano settled into his new life under the Witness Protection Program, the world was left reeling from the shocking revelations that emerged during his testimony. The details he provided shed light on the inner workings of the Gambino crime family and exposed the extent of their criminal activities. One of the most shocking revelations was the sheer number of murders orchestrated by the Gambino family. Gravano admitted to participating in or ordering the killings of at least 19 people during his time as a mobster. These murders ranged from rival gang members to fellow members of the Gambino family who posed a threat to their power. However, Gravano didn't escape prison time. Sammy Gravano's arrival at the ADX Supermax. Prison marked the beginning of a life governed by strict rules and regulations. In this section, we will delve into the incredible challenges he faced within the confines of this maximum security facility. From the moment Gravano stepped foot inside the ADX Supermax, he was confronted with a set of rules that left no room for deviation. The prison staff made it clear that any violation would be met with swift and severe consequences. One of the most striking aspects of the ADX Supermax was the limited communication allowed between inmates. Gravano found himself in a world where silence reigned supreme. In his cell, he was isolated from other inmates, with only one row of cells visible to him. There was no interaction, no chance for camaraderie or shared experiences. It was a solitary existence, where the only sounds he heard were the echoes of his own thoughts. To maintain control over the inmates, the prison implemented a strict system of surveillance. Every move Gravano made was monitored, every action scrutinized. Guards were stationed throughout the facility, ready to intervene at the slightest sign of disobedience. The constant presence of authority figures served as a reminder that any misstep could result in severe consequences. The ADX Supermax's rules extended to every aspect of Gravano's daily life. Even something as simple as receiving meals became a highly regulated process. Food was prepared in another prison, transported to ADX Supermax, and left to sit in the hallway for an extended period before being distributed to the inmates. This meant that the already unappetizing food became even less appealing as it sat for hours, losing any semblance of freshness. Gravano's limited access to the outside world was another aspect of the prison's strict regulations. Phone calls were a rare privilege, with inmates allowed only one call per month. These calls were closely monitored, with a prison employee listening in and having the power to abruptly end the conversation. The knowledge that every word spoken was being scrutinized added an extra layer of pressure and paranoia. In addition to limited communication, the ADX Supermax imposed stringent restrictions on visitation. Gravano's ex-wife's visit was a rare occurrence, and even then, it was a heavily controlled and monitored experience. Thick glass separated them, and they were only able to communicate through a phone. Physical contact was strictly forbidden, leaving Gravano feeling even more isolated and disconnected from the outside world. The prison's regulations extended to the most intimate aspects of Gravano's life as well. Strip searches were a routine occurrence, with inmates required to undress completely and bend over, ensuring that nothing was hidden. The invasion of privacy was dehumanizing, leaving Gravano feeling exposed and vulnerable. The ADX Supermax's strict rules and regulations were enforced with an iron fist. Any attempt to challenge or defy the system was met with swift and severe punishment. In the yard, where inmates had limited recreation time, failure to comply with orders from the guards could result in being shot with rubber bullets or even live ammunition if a weapon was involved. The message was clear: absolute obedience was non-negotiable. Michael Fransi. In the gritty streets of Brooklyn, a young Michael Fransi found himself drawn into the seductive allure of organized crime. Growing up in a family deeply rooted in the Mafia, it seemed almost inevitable that he would follow in their footsteps. As a teenager, Michael began running errands for his father, John Sonny Fransi, a high-ranking member of the Colombo crime family. But it wasn't until his early 20s that Michael's involvement in the criminal underworld truly took off. He quickly rose through the ranks, earning a reputation for his cunning intellect and ruthless determination. With his charming demeanor and street smarts, he became a force to be reckoned with. One of Michael's earliest ventures was in the lucrative gasoline bootlegging business. He and his crew would hijack fuel trucks, siphon off the gasoline, and sell it on the black market. This illegal operation brought in massive profits, allowing Michael to establish himself as a rising star within the Colombo family. But it was his foray into the world of sports gambling that truly catapulted him into the spotlight. Michael recognized the potential for immense wealth in this underground industry and seized the opportunity. He established a vast network of bookmakers, taking bets on everything from football games to horse races. His operation grew exponentially, raking in millions of dollars and solidifying his status as a rising star within the Mafia. In 1985, the hammer finally came down. Michael was arrested on a slew of charges, including racketeering, extortion, and tax evasion. The evidence against him was overwhelming, with wiretapped conversations, witness testimonies, and financial records painting a damning picture of his involvement in criminal activities. The trial that followed was a spectacle unlike any other. The courtroom was packed with reporters, spectators, and curious onlookers eager to witness the downfall of a mobster. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, meticulously meticulously linking Michael to various crimes committed by the Colombo crime family. Throughout the trial, Michael maintained his innocence, vehemently denying any involvement in the crimes he was accused of. He argued that he had left the criminal life behind and was now focused on building a legitimate business empire. But the prosecution painted a different picture, portraying him as a cunning and ruthless mobster who had profited from the suffering of others. The evidence against Fransi was overwhelming. Wiretaps, surveillance footage, and witness testimonies painted a damning picture of his involvement in various criminal activities. It seemed that his reign as a powerful mobster was coming to an end. The government, eager to dismantle the Colombo crime family, offered him a deal: cooperate and become a witness against his former associates. But Fransi, bound by the code of honor within the Mafia, was torn. He knew that turning on his fellow mobsters would not only put his own life at risk, but also the lives of those he cared about. Despite the efforts of his legal team, Fransi was found guilty on multiple charges. The judge handed down a lengthy prison sentence, ensuring that he would spend a significant portion of his life behind bars. It was a devastating blow for Fransi, who had once reveled in the power and freedom that came with his criminal lifestyle. And so, Michael Fransi began his life in prison. Stripped of his wealth, his power, and his freedom, he faced the harsh reality of life behind bars. The drudgery of everyday prison life became his new reality as he navigated the dangerous and volatile environment filled with hardened criminals. But it was during his time in solitary confinement that Fransi experienced a profound transformation. Cut off from the outside world, he turned to religion for solace. One night, as he sat alone in his cell, he picked up the Bible and began to read. Two verses, Proverbs 16:7 and Proverbs 3:5-6, spoke to him in a way he had never experienced before. These verses challenged Fransi to reflect on his life and the choices he had made. He realized that his path of crime and violence had led him to this point, and he needed to make a change. Over the course of his 29 months and 7 days in solitary confinement, he delved into various religious texts and ultimately found redemption in his faith. Michael Fransisi's time in prison was a crucible of transformation. From the heights of organized crime to the depths of incarceration, he experienced a profound change that would shape the rest of his life. During his 29 months and 7 days in solitary confinement, Fransi delved into religious texts and found solace in his faith. He became a follower of Christ, and this newfound belief became the guiding force in his journey towards redemption. Upon his release from prison, Fransi emerged as a changed man. He dedicated his life to spreading a message of hope and redemption, using his own experiences to inspire others to turn away from a life of crime. He became an advocate for prison reform and rehabilitation, using his platform to shed light on the flaws in the system and the importance of second chances. For the past 35 years, Fransi has lived a life dedicated to his faith and helping others. He has become a sought-after speaker, sharing his story of transformation and offering guidance to those who feel trapped in a life of crime or despair. Tucker John Gotti. In the gritty streets of the Bronx, a young man named John Gotti was drawn to the allure of the underworld. His rise to the top of the mob ranks is a tale of ruthless ambition and cunning. Born and raised in the Bronx, Gotti's journey into organized crime began at a young age. He climbed the ranks of the Gambino crime family, known for their dominance in New York City. Gotti's pivotal moment came in 1985 when he orchestrated the assassination of Paul Castellano, the then boss of the Gambino family. This daring move, executed with precision and audacity, catapulted Gotti to the top of the mob hierarchy. As the new boss, Gotti commanded respect and fear, wielding power with an iron fist. His leadership marked a new era in the Mafia, characterized by high-profile crimes and a blatant disregard for the law. Gotti's infamy skyrocketed as he transformed into a public figure. Unlike any mob boss before him, he embraced the limelight, relishing in the attention. The media dubbed him the Dapper Don for his flamboyant lifestyle and charismatic personality. Gotti's flamboyance and charm captivated the media, making him a celebrity in the underworld and beyond. His public persona contrasted sharply with the secretive nature traditionally associated with mob leaders. This notoriety, however, came at a cost. Gotti became a prime target for law enforcement, who were eager to bring down the most visible symbol of organized crime. Yet for a time, Gotti seemed untouchable. He evaded legal repercussions and lived a life that blurred the lines between a criminal mastermind and a celebrity. Gotti's ability to avoid conviction became legendary, earning him the the moniker the Teflon Don. On several occasions, he faced serious charges ranging from racketeering to murder, but each time he managed to slip through the fingers of justice. His strategy involved a mix of intimidation, jury tampering, and exploiting legal technicalities. Juries were reportedly swayed by his charm and the fear of retaliation, resulting in multiple acquittals. These courtroom victories only enhanced his reputation as the invincible boss of the Gambino family. The government's repeated failures to convict Gotti bolstered his image as an untouchable figure in the criminal underworld and frustrated law enforcement agencies. This period marked the height of Gotti's power, where his name became synonymous with the impenetrability of the Mafia's influence. But little did Gotti know that his reign at the top of the mob ranks would soon come crashing down. The downfall of John Gotti began with betrayal from within his own ranks. Gotti's life in prison was not without its moments of controversy. There were rumors of special treatment and preferential treatment from prison staff, allegations that Gotti vehemently denied. But regardless of the truth, his time in prison was marked by a certain level of intrigue and speculation. Life behind bars was a stark contrast to John Gotti's former world of power and luxury. The once feared mob boss found himself in a hostile environment where his reputation and status held little sway. In prison, he was just another inmate, stripped of the influence and resources that had protected him on the outside. Gotti's brash and arrogant demeanor, which had served him well as a mob leader, proved detrimental behind bars. He often clashed with other inmates and failed to adapt to the prison hierarchy. Gotti's expectation of respect and deference from fellow inmates, many of whom were also involved in organized crime, was met with resistance. Unlike on the streets, the prison social structure did not recognize his former title. This was particularly evident in his interactions with members of other criminal organizations, such as the Bloods, Crips, Mexican Mafia, and Aryan Brotherhood. These groups, unimpressed by his Mafia affiliation, refused to submit to his authority. This resistance was a harsh blow to Gotti's ego and sense of control. The once mighty boss, accustomed to commanding respect and fear, now found himself facing opposition from fellow inmates who saw him as just another prisoner. The tension reached a boiling point in 1996 when Gotti made a racial slur in front of Walter Johnson, a black inmate. Johnson responded by viciously attacking Gotti, leaving him injured and humiliated. This incident underscored Gotti's vulnerability. Without his usual cadre of enforcers, he was unable to defend himself or retaliate effectively. In a desperate move, Gotti resorted to hiring the Aryan Brotherhood for protection and to orchestrate a hit on Johnson. This decision was a far cry from his days of commanding respect and fear. It was an act of survival. However, the prison authorities intervened before the Aryan Brotherhood could carry out Gotti's revenge plan. They transferred Johnson to another facility, leaving Gotti without the satisfaction of retribution. This episode was a clear indication of how much Gotti's power had diminished. He could no longer command the same loyalty and fear that he once did. Gotti's time in prison was also marked by deteriorating health. Diagnosed with throat cancer in 1998, his condition rapidly worsened. The once dominant figure was reduced to a shadow of his former self, grappling with the harsh realities of prison life and a debilitating illness. Despite these challenges, Gotti continued to maintain some degree of influence. He corresponded with family members and associates, attempting to manage his criminal interests from behind bars. However, his ability to control the Gambino family's operations was severely limited. The once mighty empire he had built was slowly crumbling without his direct leadership. Gotti's health steadily declined during his imprisonment. The prison's medical facilities were ill-equipped to handle his complex medical needs, exacerbating his suffering. His physical deterioration was a poignant symbol of his fall from grace. The once untouchable mob boss now confined to a prison hospital bed, battling for his life. On June 10, 2002, John Gotti's final chapter came to a close. He succumbed to cancer in a prison hospital at the age of 61. His death marked the end of an era in the history of organized crime. Larry Maza. Larry Maza's journey into the world of organized crime began with a fateful encounter with Gregory Scarpa, the notorious captain of the Colombo crime family. Maza first crossed paths with Scarpa when he took a job as the sales manager for the entire East Coast under Scarpa's supervision. Little did Maza know that this encounter would change the course of his life forever. Scarpa, also known as the Grim Reaper, was a feared and respected figure in the New York underworld. He served as the main enforcer for Carmine Persico, the longtime head of the Colombo crime family. Scarpa Scarpa's reputation preceded him, and his influence extended far and wide. Maza was initially drawn to Scarpa's power and authority, unaware of the dark path that awaited him. As Maza settled into his role as Scarpa's sales manager, he quickly realized that there was more to this job than meets the eye. The warehouse where Maza worked mysteriously burned down, abruptly ending his position. With no other options, Maza found himself taking on smaller jobs, gradually being introduced to the activities that make someone a serious wise guy. It was during this time that Maza began to witness the true extent of Scarpa's power and influence. Scarpa's connections and reputation allowed him to operate with impunity, carrying out various illegal activities without fear of consequences. Maza was in awe of Scarpa's ability to navigate the criminal underworld and command respect from both allies and enemies. As Maza became more involved in Scarpa's operations, he was introduced to colleagues and associates as Scarpa's nephew. This designation elevated Maza's status within the organization and solidified his position as a key figure. Scarpa's trust in Maza grew, and he began to involve him in more significant tasks and assignments. Through the 70s and 80s, Scarpa and Maza worked closely together, carrying out various criminal activities on behalf of the Colombo crime family. Maza's rise within the organization was gradual but steady. He earned the respect of his peers and established himself as a reliable and capable member of Scarpa's crew. The nature of Maza's involvement in the criminal activities evolved over time. Initially, he was tasked with seemingly innocent assignments, such as driving Scarpa to certain locations or dropping him off. Maza had no idea that these seemingly mundane tasks were often connected to acts of violence and murder. One of the most chilling aspects of Maza's story is the gradual progression from being an accomplice to becoming a full-fledged killer. Maza recalled instances where he would drop Scarpa off to meet someone, only to later discover that the person he had driven Scarpa to was found dead. The realization that he had unknowingly played a role in these murders was both shocking and disturbing for Maza. As Maza became more deeply entangled in Scarpa's world, he found himself involved in acts of violence and intimidation. He would be asked to give someone a flat tire, only to later learn that the person had been killed while fixing their vehicle. Maza's involvement in beatings and other acts of violence became increasingly common as he became more deeply entrenched in the criminal activities of the Colombo crime family. Despite the escalating violence and criminality, Maza admitted that he had opportunities to leave the life of crime behind. He could have slipped out of the door and walked away from the dangerous world he had become a part of. However, Maza found himself drawn to the lifestyle that came with being Scarpa's nephew. The money, power, and respect that came with his association with Scarpa were enticing to him, and he chose to remain in the criminal underworld. Maza's rise within the Colombo crime family came to an abrupt end when Scarpa had his eye shot out during a gun battle. Maza, ever loyal, drove Scarpa to the hospital and then made his escape to Florida. However, his freedom would not last long, as the long arm of the law eventually caught up with him. Larry Maza then found himself thrust into a world of violence and danger when he was sentenced to serve time in federal prison. As he entered the prison gates, Maza was immediately confronted with the harsh reality of life behind bars. The prison he was assigned to was a maximum security facility, known for its strict rules and high level of security. It was a place where survival meant being constantly on guard and navigating the treacherous dynamics of the inmate population. From the moment he stepped foot inside the prison, Maza understood that violence was an ever-present threat. Gangs and rivalries permeated the prison environment, and one wrong move could have dire consequences. Maza quickly realized that if he wanted to survive, he needed to be cautious and avoid getting entangled in the chaos that surrounded him. While some federal prisons are notorious for their gang activity, Maza discovered that not all facilities were the same. Although violence was still prevalent, he learned that by steering clear of certain activities, he could minimize his chances of getting caught up in fights or altercations. Maza made a conscious effort to distance himself from the state penitentiary's gay subculture, which often led to conflicts among inmates. Instead, Maza focused on utilizing his entrepreneurial skills to his advantage. He became involved in bookmaking, a business that allowed him to support himself financially and gain respect among his fellow inmates. Every day he would book bets and ensure that everyone involved put up the necessary cash or stamps, which served as currency in prison. By running this operation, Maza not only secured his own financial stability, stability, but also established himself as a valuable asset within the prison economy. One of the most intriguing aspects of Maza's time in prison was his unique use of stamps. Inmates were only allowed to possess 3 books of stamps at a time, as they could be used as a form of currency. However, Maza managed to accumulate an astonishing 2,000 books of stamps during his incarceration. This impressive feat allowed him to trade stamps for various services, effectively improving his quality of life behind bars. He would pay a fellow inmate with a book of stamps to clean his cell once a week, ensuring a more comfortable living environment. Maza even used stamps to acquire better quality food, trading them for items like broccoli and hard-boiled eggs, which were not readily available in the prison commissary. His resourcefulness and ability to make the most of his circumstances set him apart from other inmates. While in prison, Maza faced the challenge of being cut off from his former mob connections. Phone calls were monitored, making it nearly impossible for him to maintain direct contact with his former associates. However, he discovered that some of the higher-ranking mob bosses, like Vicarina, still held power even from behind bars. They would receive visits from trusted family members who would deliver messages and keep them informed about the ongoing activities of the mob. This created a complex web of communication and power struggles within the prison system, further complicating Maza's already challenging environment. Despite the difficulties he faced, Maza managed to navigate the treacherous world of organized crime, both inside and outside the prison walls. His ability to adapt and survive in such a dangerous environment is a testament to his resilience and resourcefulness. Within the confines of the prison walls, a different kind of power dynamic unfolded. Larry Maza found himself entangled in a complex web of power struggles, alliances, and conflicts that mirrored the world of organized crime he had once been a part of. The presence of mob bosses behind bars added an extra layer of intrigue and danger to Maza's already challenging prison experience. One such mob boss was Vicarina, a powerful figure who still held sway even from within the prison walls. Despite his incarceration, Vicarina maintained his influence through visits from trusted family members who delivered messages and kept him informed about the ongoing activities of the mob. This allowed him to exert control and make decisions that impacted the criminal underworld. Vicarina's power and reputation made him a force to be reckoned with, even in the confines of the prison. However, the presence of mob bosses also created tensions and conflicts within the prison system. Teddy, Vicarina's brother, was tasked with delivering messages between Vicarina and the outside world. Unfortunately, Teddy's lack of street smarts and his inability to accurately convey Vicarina's intentions caused confusion and discord among the ranks. Messages would be misinterpreted, leading to misunderstandings and potential violence. One particular conflict arose during a mob war that erupted while Maza was serving his sentence. Vicarina, eager to maintain his position as the boss of all bosses, wanted to ensure his victory in the war. However, Teddy's mishandling of messages led to a breakdown in communication and a divergence of strategies. This created tension not only within the mob, but also among the inmates who were caught in the crossfire. As Maza navigated the prison hierarchy, he found himself caught between loyalty and self-preservation. While he had once been a trusted member of the mob, his time in prison had changed him. Maza had to carefully choose his alliances and determine who he could trust in this treacherous environment. The dynamics of power and loyalty were constantly shifting, and Maza had to adapt to survive. In the midst of these power struggles, Maza himself held a position of authority. As an official acting boss within the mob, he had the responsibility of running the ship and ensuring its smooth operation. However, this position also made him a target for those who sought to challenge his authority or undermine his power. Maza had to navigate these challenges while also maintaining his own safety and well-being. The prison hierarchy was not solely determined by mob affiliations. Other inmates held positions of power and influence, and Maza had to navigate these dynamics as well. He encountered individuals like Greg and Joe T, who were respected and feared within the prison community. These individuals had the ability to protect Maza and ensure his safety, but they also had their own agendas and loyalties to consider. Maza had to carefully navigate these relationships, knowing that one wrong move could have dire consequences. That brings us to the end of this video. For more videos like this, please click on the cards on your screen.